All right. Hey, welcome back to Unleash Your Purpose podcast. We have made it season 2, baby.
Yes.
With your host, Ryan Centers, and co-host, maybe for the season, we'll see, my beautiful wife, Sara Centers, sprinter mom with lashes on. Off. They're off today. Don't worry about it.
Yes.
And I thought the perfect way to start this season was to talk about summer. Yes. And we've had some moments of gains and some moments of losses.
Yes.
Some gains. I've gained about 10 lbs, so I'm trying to get that back down for the fall. The munchies were in an appropriate way, not with the kids' snacks. Munchies were strong for me.
Yes, they were.
Yeah, I know. You're always staring at my face. I feel like you're looking at like, wow, he's getting a fat jawline or something.
No, I was actually just thinking that we slimmed down for the wrong season every year.
I know.
Like, why are you going
I can
on
see
a
my
diet
abs
now?
in the winter, and then over the summer, definitely not. I'm going to keep a tank top on all summer long.
Yeah. Wow.
And I've also had if you didn't know, that I've had an aggressively thinning hair, and I gained 2,000 hair follicles.
Summer news.
Summer news. Big time. So in the matter of 4 to 5 months, you may have little sprouts of hair coming through. It was quite a surgery. So
apparently we're an implant family.
We are implant family. You're so inappropriate. But in the midst of having a fun summer of more, and I don't even know how to transition from that.
Good follicles, bad follicles.
Yes. So from a summer of some great moments, we also had some unexpected hard times.
Yes.
And it's been probably the hardest summer of our life in regards to business.
Yeah. That's fair.
Like,
sad. It was sad.
Yeah. Sad moments of business, but probably some of the most like fruitful and amazing times as a family and married couple. And
like a regathering.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe, it's probably been a summer and a season of regathering.
Revisioning.
Yeah. Re-envision our life. And but also tremendous loss for the summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who don't know, we started Ohana in 2016, and we had our first home for boys who were in the foster care system, which was our own home that we raised 4 kids in. Actually, our adopted daughter and our 5 kids all lived in this house at one point in their life.
And our adopted son.
Yeah. Wow. So all 11 of our kids have lived in this house, which was our first group home.
Yes.
So it was a beautiful home. We have so many amazing memories there.
Yes.
And we opened it then in 2016, and that was our first work. And we've had a contract with the state to do this type of work.
Yes.
And through the last 8 years, we've grown, and we've taken on more and more homes. And this summer, we got like shocking news that we were going through a contract renewal. And we were about the second biggest provider in the state, did great work. And we found out that the state was decreasing the number of providers, and Ohana was one of the 16 providers that they cut contracts from.
Yes.
And we had to lay off 50 employees?
Which was also so weird because a year and a half prior, they had asked us to take over another foster care agency. And we accumulated like 15 to 20 homes from that. Yeah. So we went through all of that mess just for them to say, just kidding.
I know.
Take it back.
Yeah. And we've been kind of quiet on this because this has been like our baby for a long time, right?
Yeah.
It's been our baby, and like the beginning of how we started Ohana, and we were creating these little families, and we have 150 kids in these homes that we provided care for, that now over the summer, we had to slowly unwind, and kids who are living in these homes, many of them living there for like 4 years.
Yeah, 2 to 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Sibling groups. We had
moms with babies.
Yeah, babies that were born at Ohana.
Yeah.
We had a sibling group of like 3 kids that went on family vacation, and all were about to leave, but they all got baptized in the ocean together. That was so beautiful. And it was just like shocking.
Yeah. And I think we didn't say anything for a while because we were in a little bit of a legal battle because we wanted to push back because we wanted the best option for kids. And the best option for them is the stability that they've already had. It's not great that they've been in foster group homes anyway. Yeah. But regardless, then you're just moving them to another group home. So I just don't think that's fair.
Yeah. And I think for us, if the hardest thing and what took so long to like compute in my brain is like, if it was like if we did a terrible job, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But it honestly felt like such like a shell shock, like process, like, we were just like floored by the decision. It almost felt like an injustice. And we went through a legal battle, and ended up, not winning, we had opportunities to appeal, but decided that was not in a good situation. So I won't go into all the specifics of it, but just so some of you guys are aware, like within the state, so Ohana, we have like 6 different contracts with the state and other different entities. So this was one of the 5 or 6 contracts that we have. So for some people, we were getting calls all the time, like, "Oh, are you guys shut down? I heard you guys went out of business." Like, no, but we did lose a big part of our business and our life, and it was very, very emotional.
And I think because we started with foster care and group homes. I think that's why it was the saddest, because it was like the original contract that we had received.
Yes, and we adopted 6 of our kids from this contract, and we never planned on adopting these kids.
No.
And we watched these kids get hope and healing in big ways.
Yeah.
So kind of from a behind the scenes look of how it all kind of worked out is within the state, you go back and bid out your services. So we're a licensed provider. We had 15 homes. We're saying, okay, we can provide 15 homes for 150 kids, and to provide housing and support for, in group home care. And this was our 3rd renewal. We thought it was a typical go with the flow. You write a whole, they do a request for a proposal, an RFP, and you answer all these questions, and you should talk about your experience and, your methodology and things like that. And then they score it. And we've done this countless times. We have the thing is we have a lot of experience. We usually get the top scores for all of our experience and our education and the work that we've done. But it kept getting delayed, like the timeline, and which is not abnormal with the state, like, okay, the due dates or the decisions. And we're like, okay, this is kind of weird. And was talking to other people who are in this space, and they're like, man, this is very different, very strange. And in this late spring, I get just an email and I'm just like opening it. I'm on my kid's soccer. My son is trying out for his soccer team, and I get this email, and it says, you're not selected. And I was like speechless. And we've already been talking to the state and the workers so many times that we're like, what in the world? And started to, like, I honestly was just in shock for those first several days.
You were kind of numb.
Yeah.
Some of the staff were numb too. The people who knew.
Yeah, we were just numb. Like, you can't even imagine it. And then as the days kind of went by, the numbness, like, I was like, what's going on? So started to make some phone calls and conversations with key people that were involved. And then word got out that another provider who ended up getting selected for this contract we assumed at first, the state kept saying that Ohana was too expensive. Ohana was too expensive, that you needed your rates to come down. We provide like family vacations and all this other stuff with it. Winter camp, like things that no other, and get them into work programs. So we're like, okay, of course we're a premium agency, I would say.
We're not just housing kids.
Yeah. We were creating families. So the price comes down. I'm like, hey, this is what it costs. So I assumed at first the reason we didn't get it is we were too expensive, which would make sense. But then I come to find out that an agency that was bigger than us actually got a rate that was higher than ours. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what in the world?
Costing the state more money.
Costing the state more money, more kids. And and then the reason they said that we did not get the contract was not just your price, but a year ago we had a deficiency in an audit that a kid went on an unapproved visit, which happens. We corrected the issue and there was no issue. And they said that's the reason. But then the same agency had a death in their home of a kid.
With no deficiency.
Yeah, with no deficiencies. So we get a deficiency for taking an unapproved absence and get no contract. They have a death and they get higher rate and get to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, what in the world?
And that's happening? Why we fought for a while.
That's why we fought.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it just didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And come to find out, like, if you read in the Arizona Republic, it was on the front page. This story was on the front page. And there's a lot more to it in regards to donations to governors and to elections and things like that. And it was very, very gross.
Yeah.
And we had to make a decision that, like, we're in the midst of like this political storm, personally, but the hardest part is like our kids, like that we know and love, are the ones who are like the ones being victim to this.
And right? I think our staff that are all like surrogate parents are the ones that were like really grieving and hurting.
Yeah.
And so we were fighting for them.
Right.
But I also think it came to a time where we could have continued to fight. But at this point, staff and kids were waiting to hear because state workers were already telling them, you're going to be moving out.
Yeah.
And so I think kids that have already had a lot of change in their life,
right,
when you're sitting in that middle, it's very anxiety driven. And
right.
So I think for the sake of our staff and kids, we had to make a decision to not fight so that they could work towards stability because they were sitting in that change and it was really hard.
And actually, I'm naturally a fighter. And so we had a legal team. We fought, but then it was like, okay, we go to the next level of fighting, which is going to cost money, more of an uphill battle, more uncertainty. And you have to, like, almost as like, not even just a business owner, but like people who are caring for these staff, like, I don't want to giving them uncertainty, like a lack of certainty for staff and for kids is just so disruptive. And it like is, you just, at some point we needed to make a decision and kind of count the costs of like, hey, is it worth the finances and all of the and the focus? Are we going to be a political fighting engine ministry? Or are we going to be like a foster care or social service agency and just
I'm not going to lie. There are times where
you want me to fight.
I realize how much politics play a role. And there are times that I'm like, I really wish I was a good political fighter. Like, yes. I would love to be. I would love to rip someone apart and totally go there.
Yeah.
But I also know that our core of our family and our work values are providing hope.
Yes.
And so I think we had to make a shift from providing hope that you're going to stay in Ohana to helping our staff members provide hope for these kids, knowing they are still going to have a bright future. And so it was like the shift of, we want you to feel hope, but we need you to know your hope is going to be elsewhere for you.
Yeah. And like, it was very big on like we are like, Jesus is still their savior. God is still with them, and that and God is fighting for them.
Yeah.
And you got a family verse years ago that when we were adopted our son, that like Exodus 14:14.
Or is it 17:17? But it's the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still.
Yeah. And
I know that I think our fight was over, but the Lord is still fighting for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think it was May, we had to do an all staff meeting.
Yeah.
And I asked Sarah to be a part of it. And to sit with me as we had to tell the staff that we lost.
I don't like bad news. I don't like sad news. I don't like.
She stuffs it all down.
Oh, I don't like confrontation. None of it.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah. And I remember having to sit even in our admin meeting and having to tell the people that I work with every single day that this happened and that some of us are not going to be in this room.
Yeah.
And I have never had to do a layoff in my life.
Yeah.
8 years, never had to do a layoff. And let me tell you, that is hard. It's brutal. And brutal, it's brutal for us, but I happen to have these people who are now jobless because of a situation was horrific.
I remember thinking during COVID how grateful we were that we had state contracts because our jobs had to continue. I mean, kids don't leave group homes. So we continued to get pay and our businesses were able to continue where many businesses were shutting down.
Yeah.
So I used to feel really safe having state contracts. And this was the first time that I realized it can be ripped out from underneath you.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have other businesses, we would have been bankrupt.
Yeah.
And just because they said no more. And
things
that's it.
And it's one thing if you're doing something egregious and you should get it taken away.
Yeah.
We just had an audit. We just had our accreditation. All great.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that is one of our biggest learnings and where I'm so thankful is there are 15 other people and other companies that had the same thing that are now calling me and they're out of business.
Yeah.
Or they're calling me, do you have any jobs for me?
Yeah.
Because that's all they know.
Yeah.
And we had to lay off 15 people, but we did offer of those, at least 40 of them, we offered other jobs within Ohana.
Yeah.
So they may have lost this job, but they were able to go work with our special needs population, or they're able to go work with our
extended foster care.
Yeah, our Beyond Foster programs, where we work with youth who've aged out of the foster care system.
Yeah.
And so we were able to kind of help point them to the next thing. And that was a hard few days.
Yeah.
And for those of you guys, if you're someone that's a hiring authority or a business owner, and these are the things this is where the fire, you're created in the fire, or what is that word that you're trying to say?
You're refined in the fire.
Yeah. And it's how you respond in that. And what I noticed is actually in that season, I was the most clear-headed and prayerful and not anxious. I was sad, but I was clear-headed. And I think that was there's a lot of refining that has happened through the years and God preparing me for hard battles, which I'm grateful for. So even all of the failures or hardships can prepare for all right, I know I have the shoulders to handle this.
Yeah. And you also didn't make decisions based on emotions.
Right.
And that's a huge shift from maybe what it would have been a couple years ago.
Yes. Yeah. I'm so passion driven that passion is good, but you need to also be logical and thoughtful and wise. Wisdom and passion sometimes are not the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of going through that. So we, this summer was a moment of great hair growth.
Well, not yet. It's getting there.
Okay, it will. Planting of the seed. And someday, hair growth. But also great loss, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And it was so bittersweet as we adopted 4 of our 5 June 14th, and almost a week and a half later, while we were in California celebrating summer with Ohana, is when we got the news that the appeal didn't go through.
Yeah.
And it was this, it's so crazy when within 2 weeks, your life can be such a high and then such a complete low.
and it's like not even high. It's nothing about, it's like your kids, your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get another email saying that, hey, the appeal was not successful. And we're at California with 100-something kids having a family vacation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what other company does this? But I'm like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're going to make sure this is the most amazing few days of their life.
Yeah.
And Sarah does we do a talent show. And guess what? Because we're Ohana and we went to a luau a year ago, she said, I'm going to become a fire twirler.
Well, I was like, we saw it in a luau in Hawaii, and I was like, I know how to twirl fire. I used to twirl batons. I'm sure it's not that hard. Oh. But then I forgot I ordered the fire baton like in maybe March. And I forgot to pick it up and practice it before June. So I started practicing.
The day before we leave for California, she's in the backyard twirling her fire baton. Mm-hmm. And don't wear too much hairspray those days because that thing is going to go.
It was very scary. And I was very excited that I didn't drop anything.
Yes. So the kids got like their own Ohana luau with fire twirling and chants and talent show. And we shared like the love of God. And that night we ended up baptizing like 15 kids.
Yeah.
Who went to summer camp and made a choice to follow Jesus. And it was so awesome.
Yeah.
And we started this in 2016 and we went on our first family vacation with Ohana and baptized like 3 kids and then finished I feel like a season. Mm-hmm. Now closing it down with a great celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was a good reminder too that, you and I know group homes are the last ditch effort for a lot of kids because foster families are the best option or birth parents are the best option if they're healthy. And so we knew it was a form of foster care, but I think there are so many other ways that we can serve kids in the foster care ministry that it didn't feel super like, it felt like we were shutting a big door on homes, but it didn't feel like foster care was shutting out of our life in a way.
Yeah, and I think we've had like this transition that's happened in our own life. Is we got 9 kids at home. Our kids are getting older, and so much of our beginning part of our work was working with kids in these group homes. But now we have our own kids and almost like our own group home in our own home.
So true.
And they deserve to have parents that are around that need to be involved, that need to show them what it means to be consistent, to be intentional, to love them, and to go to games and never miss a practice and have their own family vacations. And
we are no longer the owners that are walking into the homes and having relationships. And it just is what it is for the growth and the size, but also to the fairness of our own children. Because I think that's something too that we've learned through the years is like you can't neglect your children for your job. And sadly, our job revolves around children and adults with special needs. But so like you feel this guilt sometimes, but it's like I would feel guiltier if I ripped away my time and attention from my kids.
Yeah, I feel like, at the end of my life, if I'm going to stand before God, I was like, God's going to ask, how did I steward my 4 walls first?
Yes.
And if I didn't take care of that, then nothing else matters.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes as men, we focus on the other walls of life, the other door, the other business and career, and we neglect the 4 walls. And I said, no, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And I think another kind of vision that we've had that's been consistent is like, as our kids are getting bigger, one of our biggest joys is watching our kids get involved with our work, with our ministry, and watching them like get an excitement and passion. So they would, when we had young kids, they would, when we host our Easter egg hunts, they would take a special needs kid by the hand and walk them to do
select the eggs, or they would lead games, or they would
serve breakfast for our different events. And they knew that we are Ohana, that we are like creating this love, and they are there to be a part of it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is our family work. and our family ministry together. And as the years have went by, the kids who were in our group homes tended to become a little more challenging.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. That's not for today, but I remember we went to Flagstaff for a few weeks after this whole thing happened. And at first I was like so numb, and I went through the stages of grief, and I was numb and sad and denial and then angry. I probably was angry for a little bit.
Yeah.
That was my whiskey stage. I love a good angry stage. And I was dealing with that. But then as I got through the anger stage and the stage of whiskey, the whiskey stage of grief, I was opening up my Bible and kind of reading through the different scriptures. And of course, I went to the book of Job, which you're not familiar with. He loses everything. It's like, woe is me. He loses his family, loses his business, loses his wife. And it's so sad. And then at the end of the story, though, at the end of Job, it says the Lord gives and the Lord takes. May his name be blessed. Like, wow. Isn't that honest? The Lord gives, Lord takes. May his name be blessed. And then I went to Genesis, and I was reading about Joseph in the Bible. And Joseph gets sold into slavery by his brothers. And then at the end of Genesis 52, Joseph is at this pinnacle of his career, and he's like the number 2 in charge and of the country he's in. And his brothers come to him who sold him into slavery, and they're asking him for help. And he says to hit the brothers, he says, what man has intended for evil, God will use for good. And what it was like jumping off a page that maybe, just maybe, we didn't want this to happen.
No.
Maybe what man intended for evil, no one was malicious, and everyone in the state was, I'm sure, doing things what they thought were best interest, but God will use it for good.
Yeah.
And I honestly think we've come full circle, that I don't think we could have. I think God may have taken this away from us on purpose.
Yeah.
Or at minimum, what I do know is he will use it for good, because it was such our baby. And if I'm honest, over the last year, this work has caused so much angst within our company.
And our staff.
With our staff. My best friend
creates health issues.
Had health issues and a midlife crisis, and
I got
anxiety and panic attacks. Our finances were just bleeding out because of this one contract. And it was just so much stress and worry, but it was our baby.
Yeah.
And it was like, we could not get rid of it.
Yeah.
And it was like God saying, here, I'm going to do it for you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, because I have something new for you.
It's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Yes. And coming to terms with letting go and losing something has been so honestly healing. And I felt so much lighter, honestly, through this. It's not great to talk about it.
Yeah.
Stuff it down. We've had 15 homes. 10 of them had leases we had to get out of. Several of them we own personally, and now trying to find uses to make it work. So that's a lot of figuring things out. The afterplay of unwinding business stuff is very, very difficult. People look at life and us and like, oh, wow, how great it is. I'm like, if you only knew.
Yeah.
If you only knew.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what else? What did you learn?
I think I actually remember feeling that I was less anxious through this than I thought I would have been. I think at the beginning of it, especially finding out about the donation politically and things like that, I was very angry. And I was also very angry at the thought of kids getting ripped out of a home they've known for 2 years. I think putting kids in kinship situations is better.
Yes.
But we found out they would find people who were connected to the kids' cases from a year ago that the kid didn't even know or had never met in person, and they were moving them across town to live with them because that was kinship. And so I think there were some things that made me want to, my blood would boil. But I also knew for Ohana, or for our personal family, I felt like God has this. And if our appeal doesn't work, that means it's not supposed to work.
Yeah.
And so I think you could fight tooth and nail, but why would you spend the money doing that when maybe God has a bigger plan?
Yeah.
So to me, I don't know. I feel like we've also gone through a lot of hardship and changes at various times that I feel like sometimes hardship is getting less hard. So it is hard, and you can talk about it, and but like our hard looks different for someone else's hard.
Yeah. It's I do notice that, like, wow, I this would have killed us 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just the maturing or being older, I guess. Maybe we're a little more, we're able to kind of endure it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I honestly, we met with as a staff and got all of our leaders back together. Our first time, we do this big celebration, go over values, core value awards, tell stories, really try to be encouraging for this time of all of our leaders. And typically it's been with 150 leaders. And this time we're in a movie theater, and there's probably 80 of us.
Yeah.
Which 80 leaders, hundreds of staff still. People are like, oh, whoa. But that's like.
But it was a huge shift.
Huge shift.
Yeah.
But I felt so convicted in my spirit that the best days are ahead of us. That God is so still in this, and the best days are in front of us. That we were kind of celebrated. Like, this was a chapter. Like, this whole podcast is about this chapter has come to a close. And that is what it is.
Yeah.
I went into a group home, one of our last ones, and there's handprints on the walls of all the kids. And it's closed. And there is something where there is necessary endings in life and in business. And this has become a necessary ending.
Yeah.
But also, when there's endings, there's also a new day that is coming.
Yeah.
And this new day is bright. And we get to come back to, like, we have a mission working with kids and special needs adults. We have our Beyond Foster program, helping 250 foster kids who have aged out of foster care, our work programs, launching other programs. And, like, that is way more exciting to me.
Yeah.
And it allows you and I to be able to lead our organization, but not have to be so worried about a fentanyl overdose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or someone
shooting up a house or whatever it may be.
Yes.
I think the one thing I realized after this summer, when we went and spent time up north, and have recently visited some other, like, nonprofits, is just the reminder that we're in it for the long haul. And so even though 8 years, part of that chapter has closed, there are agencies that have been open for 20, 30, 40 years that are where we want to be one day.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they didn't have these hardships in the midst of that. And so I think the biggest thing I've seen is that we used to grow exponentially so fast because, hey, we need a home. Hey, we need this program. Hey, we need that. And it was like grow, 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 grow. But now I think the steadiness is more matching our life, because I know one day you and I, we're going to have kids out of the house, and we're going to have all the time in the world to, devote our lives to this ministry. But right now we're balancing family and work life and the health of Ohana. And I think sometimes slow and steady is healthy.
Yes. Like, I think there's probably one of the biggest takeaways that I had through this was there is 3 things that you have to evaluate for when a business can go through a growth cycle. And you have to check, like, are we ready for growth? 1, do you have the cash to do it? Number 2, do you have the right people that can do the work, the right good people, and then the systems and processes to do it. And I think there has been some growth cycles that we have done that we're always cash poor. We didn't have the money to do it. We just kind of barely made it through. We had great people, but we're already stretched thin.
Yeah.
And we were still young and the processes weren't mature enough.
Yeah.
And now you're like, okay, now as we go through the next growth cycle, we evaluate on those 3.
Yeah.
Are we ready for that? And that is a much more mature way to do it. And I think a much wiser way, because we're going to do this for the long term.
Yeah.
Because I always tell one of my kids, I go, hey, you're going to be tell Brooklyn, you're going to be the first female CEO of Ohana.
Yeah.
And she's like, Dad, I'm being a dolphin trainer. I'm like, no. Okay, baby.
Okay,
but you know what? This is not this is a lifetime thing, and this is our family thing. So we're going to keep it going together.
Yeah.
And slow and steady. I can't believe I'm saying that. But slow and steady sometimes is the best thing.
Slow and steady centers.
Ooh, that sounds horrible. We still need a little adventure. Like
steady but speedy centers.
Oh yes. Like we have our ranch up in Flagstaff, and she loves when I go ranch Ryan.
Oh no, I don't. I told you I like vacation Ryan, not ranch Ryan. Ranch Ryan doesn't shower and leaves his hair all wild in the wind.
I know. If you ever see it, it has to be combed down, because any push of hair or wind just goes.
It's literally Donald Trump hair just flapping over.
Flapping in the breeze. So Ranch Ryan was going crazy.
Make Ryan have hair again.
Oh my God. That could be our sign. It can be your Wu-Tang sign.
Oh my gosh, it's so true.
What's your Wu-Tang?
No, a neighbor down the street has a sign that says presidents are temporary, Wu-Tang is forever.
Yes. Ryan's hair is soon to be forever. Yes. So yes, we have the best days ahead of us. Thank you for joining me on our first podcast back. We'll see if it's the first one we release out. We'll see how we feel. But until next week, may you unleash your purpose, profit, and business, faith, in life. Peace.
Thanks for joining us for the Unleash Your Purpose podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review. We'll see you next week.